volunteered for Florian Schneider, who passed last week. I've been told I should be like the bartender, letting people in and talking about the day as it happens, as people kind of come in. So these are neon lights. We're in the city, you know, there's a bar atmosphere of some sort, and all you guys are just waiting. And on one screen we have our continual screen, which is Michael Merck. Michael is going to be making pickles throughout the hour, fermenting them, and then a self-portrait will come from that. So that's in the screen in the center. When people check in, I'll explain a little more the amount of control that you have out there. Hi, Alina.
Hey, Edwin. I'll mute myself. You'll mute me.
Okay, all right.
One of us is going to mute me.
One of us has to mute you.
One of us is going to do that, or both of us. How are you? How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Nice shirt.
Thank you. Oh, what are you on? I like your outfit.
Me?
No, well, YouTube, I'm talking to somebody else.
Oh.
But you look good too. Hold on. 7 o'clock, clap. Okay. This is our theme music. It's by Free Kitten. It's called Teeny Weeny Bobby. So thank you all for coming. A little housekeeping. Please turn off all your cell phones. Don't. Please, the nearest bathroom is in your own home. And as always, the nearest exit is behind you. I want to make sure that we understand that later on, I'll be spotlighting some videos. And, okay. Shut up, Free Kitten. And what I'm going to be doing is spotlighting some videos, so I sort of take over your screen for a little bit, and that'll probably be during Judd's performance. In the meantime, on your own, there's a little button up at the top corner of your screen, and you can control the video that you see. You can choose to pin a video. Now, I bring that up for a few different reasons. One, you can control your viewing experience. Number two, if we all see Michael Merck, Michael's screen with the cutting board and ingredients on it, he's going to be making pickles, cutting and fermenting pickles during this hour. And underneath that is a drawing board, so he's going to be also doing a self-portrait, connecting with that. Now, the cool thing is that Michael is also doing this while tending to a toddler and to an 8-month pregnant wife. So he's all about making. This performance is about making. It's about the time you put into everything, whatever. We'll talk about it later. So Michael is going to sometimes be present, sometimes he won't be, but the material and the ingredients are there throughout. Now, having said that, tonight we have a range of incredible performers, and they are all involved with this book, The Body and Language, an Anthology. So this book came out from Counterpath Press last year, and it deals with the self and the body's self and the body's imagery, or what you call self within your work. The book has healing practitioners, artists, writers, a range of people that are working with communicating in their own way, how they see themselves in their work, and how, by the same token, how the world sees them. So there's a lot within there to kind of pick apart. We'll present our pieces, and then we'll talk a little bit at the end. We'll have a confab. Oh, there's Michael. See, Michael's hands appeared. Cool. Okay. All right. So I think I said all that stuff, and now I will start with a short poem, and then we'll begin with everything else. I think everything is cool. Yes. All right. Thank you all for coming. And here we go. Tonight's presentation, every series, the whole series encompasses a range of participants, and tonight's participants have a specific connection to me, but one of them has to do with habitation. We're all about habitation now anyway, so this poem is a little bit about that. That's all I'll say. And the other thing, the only thing I'll say to that is that the poem is about a visit I had with my uncle in Puerto Rico many years ago, and he was talking to me from the house that he was born in and still lived in. This is entitled, "My mother's brother-in-law never left the shack he was born in, the world outside no match for the one inside. Saul, pronounced Saul, blue eyes of ice fire, canyon-bronzed crevices folded on a sheared face, coffee mountain beard, bright notes, interspeckled philosopher raconteur. Could have been poet, he states, confirming the non-title, before I get any big ideas. Don't ever feel that loco is what makes you a poet, his lesson starts. Don't ever feel crazy because you feel. Listen, he says. Let's say there's a house you pass every day. You see it as sure as I'm seeing that house right there. I pass it every day, but do I know it? Can I imagine that house, what it believes in, how it frames my day? There's the beginning, and there's the end, and then there's this house, my house, the one I live in. This is a house I do know. A house I built with my hands. The sort of house one could say with a certain amount of logic, that knows me in return, you see? How can an object have the same feelings as a person of flesh and bone? That's where imagination comes in, where you can let your poetry feel for you. As if to affirm the awakening, he continues. You know, there are songs that have real meaning but also follow a logical path. For instance, and I only say this because you need to understand. And here is where the rest of the attack surges without me. I need to understand, he tells me. I am semi-left alone to balance thought against action, as both our eyes walk over insular blinking, reminded by waterless road that anything you touch will touch you back. My mother's brother-in-law, ancient in his nurtured isolation, upon hearing that he was to have an audience with a poet, a real poet in his words, unleashed a lifetime of torment embroidered by entry. His demonic shell outside the shack he was born in, a fitting metaphor of a house encased by a home. A world of his own making versus a world outside. No match for the man who believes he has dreamed his life is the one who will choose to wake up when it's gone. The man who laughs at his first breath will swing himself to sleep on the wings of his night. His moon, a suspension against natural intention. His landing, a forced reckoning, starved by the false never come. He pauses and sees an opening. The imagination is important, you see? The way you can go outside your house. The way you see what is across your street. That tree over there, for example. Do I know it sees me every day? Just because I see it? How can that be, you say? How can a tree have the feelings of meat if I chop it down for fire or to live in? Who is to say that what I live in is not having feelings every day, the more I stay inside it? the more I wake up every morning and see these walls made of wood from a tree that feels. Who is to say that what sees me sleeping is also not sleeping but watching me while I sleep? The feeling of the tree I killed is the same one that protects me from the storm. What I killed is what loves me, you see? How can I say the same thing about a thing that I destroyed? Because it makes me warm and protected. That's where the mind comes in, you see? If you're using your mind in your words will protect you. If you destroy words with your moon, did I say it was mind I meant? If your mind is destroyed, you know your words will protect you. What it is I think I want could be a walk along the now, underneath the low clouds, a skip aligned by direction, the ground as wet as a long rest. Let me experience belonging to a wish. So habitation. With that in mind, we'll start with Susan. Susan Osberg. Again, the full chat is in the bio. The full bio is in the chat. Susan Osberg is a choreographer, dancer, writer, filmmaker, teacher, spiritual practitioner, and healer. The music she's using tonight is entitled Water, Air, Meditation by the band Calm Whale. Susan.
Hi. Thank you, Edwin. I just want to say that I've changed the music since we talked. So it's Terry Riley, Shri Kamel. And if I wanted to also thank Edwin very much for being a bridge to language and body. I just think this is a fantastic series. I'll be reading a poem that came out, or a language that came out of anxiety, being in sequester in my studio in Maine. And thinking of you in New York, listening to the news, and the first poem or language will be about that. Then I'll do a dance, which is improvisation to Terry Riley. And then I will go back to language, which will be some work that came out of the floor, came out of my body, working on the floor. This is my cat Maxine. She may wander through. So I'll give it a start here. After the meal, meatpacking presidential mandate, open factories, Midwest governor's decree, decry Iowa, Nebraska, Arkansas, Arizona, money before lives, virus spreading like mustard on their hot dogs, like scapegoats over nefarious agenda, like lies out of the mouths of trumpeteers. Fears will not be counted. Science will not be counted. Common sense will not be counted. Failure will not be counted. The US will not be counted. Votes will not be counted. Only inanity, void of sanity, will rule this land, GOP with no second act but to make off for the winnings on the graves of the others who don't count, never counted, don't count, never counted, even in ignorance, even in insult, even in mortality. Pigs and steaks and chickens packaged under no fair deal, go to work or else, elbow to elbow, no time off the chopping block, conveyor belt necessity. Gotta have our meat, infections staggering, tests uncounted, restrictions unnecessary, and so on. Who will eat the poison meat? Repeat, who will eat the poison meat? Wrap it up in stars and stripes, deliver it to these derelict governors, to the amended CDC, to the dystopian charge of the right, serve up a feast with a marching band, take a stand, pigs and steaks and chickens, Animal Farm, denounce the dictators, free your souls, release man, woman, and child from their cages. If they die for their country, will they be buried in Arlington? If because they need nothing to earn, die because what does it count? If they die because they need to earn nothing, what does it count to live? Dance the dream body. Tree standing, thrust up and down, vertical sky. Horizon, ground, melting ice body. Crow lands on your knee. Feel twisted body, feel fallen, feel roots. Waves, particles, particles, waves, pebbles on a beach, hold, slow, time. Memory steps out the water. Butterflies migrate across the sea, over my body in time, just in time. Hold seeds from the present, where am I? Here and here. Pelvis is an ancient cave. Heartbeat calls the night near. Stars wander across the wonder wood. Who knows a dance of an old woman? Butterflies emerging on the edge of sweetgrass. Mariposa canyons. Deep blue space. Finch, who died in my hands. Goodbye, goodbye, gentle one. Offering your body to the hawk. Soft and light. Arriving in the day, tapping the heart with an invisible beak, just a drumbeat away. Transfigure a shape, one with another, one with the mother, pulsing pattern continuity, geologic evidence, morphing into roots and stones and crustaceans, waiting to be born. On the edge of a lake, thrown into the world with its heart woes, butterfly colors, red, white, yellow, black, the color of people. This is for you, and you, and you, and you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. So, from the color of people to the pickling of people of a bowl, Michael will be revisiting this. I should tell you that when I spotlight a video like this, you have the option of returning to the gallery view. You can go to the corner and just go to gallery and go back to whatever view you want. I'm just letting you know that. So Michael is probably tending to one of his many duties while this is settling and fermenting. We move on. Okay. Brandon Downing. Are you ready, my friend?
I'm so ready.
Okay. Brandon Downing is a writer, collage artist, and filmmaker with a number of books and monographs published. Again, his bio is in the chat. Brandon.
Hi, everyone. I'll ask probably now, I'm going to be doing a screen show, so maybe we can pop into speaker view if you don't mind just for the next few minutes. Quick shout out before I disappear to Edwin and Tim and Julie and the Counterpath folks. Brother Edwin, my fellow performiers tonight. Nice to see everybody virtually. Where to start? I've been talking with Edwin a little bit about ways that I might be able to build on the essay that I wrote for the anthology, which was really about sort of releasing the energy within books in terms of by physically cutting away at the language. Which really figures into the sort of treating the book as a body, or in my case, more of a circulatory system. What I'm going to do now is show some work that I've done in the last 10 years or so that sort of advances that into into new avenues, really moving away from the release of the energy within printed and published books to actually composing with the words and the phrases that are physically cut out, which I guess I would call, I have a note here saying they're sort of composing with is like cumulative micro occurrences between intention and chance, which is a beautiful process. The way I've been doing so, as I go into share screen, is the following. I've been working on a, oh, sorry. It's not allowing me to move through my presentation. So here we are. Good. What I've been working on for about the last 10 years is a very intense interrogation of divinity in the dialectical and theatrical space, rotating around an examination in poems and images of Euripides, the Bacchae, the great Greek tragic play. Why have I done this? I don't know. It's there's literally hundreds of poems around the project, and also a lot of collage works associated with it. Many of which are, like in my previous book, like Antiquity, poems, and many more of them are really more about an exhortations of the divine space. This piece here is called The Reading, because tonight we're having a reading, in a sense. But more so, it's about reading. This piece is called Pompeian, and you might get the themes right away. Lord of the world, the first row shall be protected by grave jazz, by the close atomic packing. Unlike when we twist and turn the other in a spherical cage in dark, smooth silver, there where it belongs to the peak, and above it rises the cross. No longer an upper-class phenomenon, but knowledge of their nature cannot rob them of their magic between the sexes and the nature attained by the plastic naturalism of members of the cat tribes. This poem is about Naples, Italy. The chance to become known like those of the geometric polychrome, ultrasonic in their natural shape and epochs, a pineal gland in the nautilus. I like that cameo cutting in triangles of machines and amalgamates, a middle balance in the numerous deep blue stripes and in the magic function. And again, it is the apocalypse, born poor among the poor. It is the honor of evil. It will be war. The popular kinetic dead man. Fear him. Now, as opposed to releasing works from the books, I've worked on these, what I call theatrical environments, freeing up pictures from their context and putting the pictures and images and figures into dialogue with each other over the last 10 years. This is a much more recent piece. It's about 12 feet by 12 feet wide by 2.5 feet high. What else to say? I don't know. Look around for a second and I'll talk a little bit about putting bodies in theatrical space. I guess if I can ruin your viewing by talking, these probably were inspired very much by the Italian ceiling frescoes, particularly the one of the Jesuit Cathedral in Rome, where all the figures seem to be in dialogue and visual dialogue and viewing dialogue with each other. This is called The Woman Looking for Love Dies on Mountain. I guess there's no way you'd be able to tell that. This piece is called Good Company 2. Again, it's about moving beyond the language and cutting up and freeing language from its home within the book and putting these bodies into the theatrical space to bring it back to the theme of the anthology. These works are recently on show up in upstate New York. And then there's also the simple pleasure of silly juxtapositions, which one should never lose, as you see here. But back to reading. Those unblemished spheres come from surviving pieces, together with a large, perfectly matched nude female figure. Or is on the other side, I was and we are absorbed. Fantastic. This is called The Dreamers. I've always been really obsessed with the work of Isaac Dinesen, and that doesn't seem about to stop. Well, let's move on. I've never read this work or shown this work in public. I'm really excited to be doing it tonight. This is just from a few years back. It's simply called The Poem. To have faith in an object vast as the sky, the young god imitated the example set by to identify and to link it with immaterial truth, perched on its branches and on the back, or a form of armor like a piece of lace crystal, which becomes purely frivolous with the shamanism and animism. As metals and stones image and 2 long rows of dignitaries of both sexes become coarse, showy, and virtual by the faith and love, having preferred death to the denial and carried it around, rare enough, where it is composed to incorporate them on those audacious supernatural forces and the real threat of sickness and death, the damaged Lord of the world. And the intrinsic examples of her, usually made of lead and broken ribbons and human heads, which was a fountain, but the whole statue, the existence of my keynote name, all the dead for thousands of years, with zoomorphic heads and hanging tongues. My testimony is that they have existed constantly, set between preserves to these solemnization motions. There is another interpretation, a counterpart to this in the vast panorama, for the dial has again been in view in the lotus pectoral. On certain days they are taken off and worshipped. Divinity. Dusty. Shrooms. There's also a lot of fun it's also a lot of fun to play with color. I've shown largely monochromatic things, but it's also nice to put different color bodies in different colored theatrical landscapes. What was I calling these? Oh, I don't know. There's some sort of pretentious name I came up for these. Prosceniums, that's what are. These are proscenia, theatrical maquettes for the eventual version of the play, my version of the Bacchae, that sits at the corner of this 700-page pretentious book, where these are also living, some of them. This poem is called The Scope. Sometimes it's interesting to use collage to find ways to describe the image that the collages, that the language is being set upon. This poem is merely a description of the picture that it lies on. This was only natural to deck themselves in the incorruptible material. For men, the ring, a fabulous cone, its peculiar levels of significance, each in a milky color. This casket, this eye stone, with its claws and linear lines as insignia before the eyes. It is as with birds, a solar aspect and much else. His right hand is in his left hand, out in ribbons. Oops. Oh, and now I have my bar breaking it. His right hand is in his left hand, out in ribbons, and reserved for the clasps. Oh, more fun, a little naughty. I apologize for you sensitive folks. I like to get naughty. And just a couple more little things here. This is a piece really that's central to, I guess, my read of Euripides in the Bacchae. There are quite a few figures from the play that are represented here. And I'll close this short set with one final little read on divinity. This is called L'abbondanza di Mazzola, the abundance of Mazzola. Pretentious. For the storms had placed me here on earth from a more exalted sphere, near my former friends in birth, saying, "You're a stranger here, great painter of the enemies, with division as his day, grace camps in easy reach, for with the Lord I lay." Thanks for listening, everybody, and watching.
Thank you, Brandon. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, there's a lot to go over there. Before we go to Urayoán, let's see what Michael is doing. So the pickles have become what looks like a foot and a hand, apropos to come from collage to segmented squares. So this is what Michael calls a self-portrait, and we will periodically check in on this self-portrait as it takes shape. And we'll ask him about the pickles. I imagine that they're fermenting just off camera. A hand on a hand, drawing a hand. So this all fits perfectly with what we're about, doesn't it? Okay. Urayoán Noel is a writer, performer, scholar, author of a number of books and translations, a good friend, and bochinchero de Noricua. Urayoán.
Gracias, Edwin. Buenas noches, everybody. Gracias. Okay, that was a little nonverbal appetizer. So it's a little bit about what I've been working on while in isolation. And one thing I think like a lot of us geeks that happened to me is I became fascinated with the structure of the coronavirus, right? And I realized that it was these combinations of A, C, Gs, and Ts, right, that make up its genome sequence. And they were in 10-letter combinations. And I thought, I write 10-line stanzas called decimas. What if I did a little genomic take on the sequence? So I'll give you just a taste of what that looks like. There are 3 characters here. There's C and T, like the letters, who are 2 writers, and they're trying to fight against Attacked, which is the name of the shadowy organization that's the enemy in this dystopian narrative. And Attacked is also the first stanza of the genome sequence, ATEA. Attacked rose as oligopolies were controlling all the cosmic energy. Its distribution across space and time, patenting each neutrino and enzyme, raw materials, the whole paradigm. When the first virus caused a great lockdown, attacked, controlled that first vaccine through crime, letting opponents know that they'd incur a sorry fate if they did not defer, and put them through a deadly pantomime. It killed and bullied all so ruthlessly. It drove any resistance way, way down in its own brutal viral apogee. But soon enough, it had no enemies, because it didn't dare to cause a stir. The managerial classes looked down. Artists made smiley faces that could frown for protest's sake. Their technique was sublime. And working classes sipped poisoned liqueur to get a fancy job as its chauffeur. Pretty soon, every last building downtown had "Give Praise" on it. Some wine connoisseur put it on every label of their prime. The box store sold millions in record time. Everybody will win turned out to be this viral phenom, huge on Brain TV. The royal branders wore it like their crown. It helped folks cope through virus and lockdown. It fed the dreams of each entrepreneur for whom the profit is the proper noun. Some poison tastes sweet when you gulp it down, especially if you give it a stir and pretend it's a night out on the town. In truth, it was all cooked up by a clown or 10 or millions if you so prefer. Still, this is not the way it had to be. It shouldn't have been power punching down. Your power from below defies space-time, amid your fellow critters, all set free, but not if the ecology break down. Our spy understands the power of rhyme. Give praise always, but attacked enough time to make everyone willing to defer to whatever its blunt priority. There's an ecocidal brutality to life now in this mostly ruined town, and yet the ruins buy you your own time. Ruins of form, immemorial rhyme. Once the placards will have come crumbling down, flower poems will bloom from cosmic slime. I'm turning back to C and T, and I'm noticing their windows now full of grime. That seems like from another galaxy. In truth, it's from their tears. C and T can't go on foraging for wild rhyme and sooty weeds to feed them. Wannabe poets who stutter and mumble and slur can still figure this out. They've been knocked down before and turned hard knocks to poetry. Their words must feed them now. Set them free. Okay, so from then I went on to this other structure of the Krona sequence, playing just with the C's, A, G's, and T's, and using it to make these like postcard quatrains. This is inspired by the work of the great Mexican poet and book artist Ulises Carrion, right? Who was also a kind of key figure in mail art. So my idea is to kind of send these off and then have folks send them to each other and arrange them as they like. They're all questions, so they can be rearranged modularly, right? To create its very own structure, as it were. So. Can you find lifelines in the death spiral? Con vida estás empírico espiral. Ah, you remember when things went viral. Acuérdate de aquel sueño viral. Goddess, who'll document your retiral? Guerreras ahogarán al admiral. Time yet for the performative eye roll. Tiempo es por fin del guiño neuronal. Can writing be no contact with tracing? Cuando se escribe sin contacto, es traza. Are silences in lines enough spacing? Algo en silencio, entre líneas, pasa. Graphics matter most when self-erasing? Grafía del yo es borradura crasa. Too soon on all fours to start embracing? Tarde es para el que ñangotao abraza. Can quatrains somehow rhyme with quarantine? Cuarteto rimará con cuarentena. Are solemn pages ready for their screen? Ante pantallas, la página es condena. Gray skies can sometimes signal the unseen. Gris cielo, al fin, o revelación plena. Trauma was always written in between. Trauma es lo que el azar desencadena. Can poetry be both fold and spasm? ¿Cuál poesía? ¿De pliegue o de espasmo? Gravitas can grow its own sarcasm. Gritos de lucha se oyen sin sarcasmo. As digital as a corpse orgasm? ¡Ay, digital cadáver! ¿Y tu orgasmo? Terrors are holes, since everyone has them. Terrenos del terror. ¿Dónde me plasmo? And I'll leave you with this. Coral. Writing this ink like the inverse of come, fulcrum of sweat, you end up with your face and your arms, cry if you need to just let those deep breaths become one with this hemorrhaging land whose raging hymn will be one of our hunger, with and for each other. At the shelled and shellacked beach, there is meager shelter for multitudes of lovers, autarchies of capital, the pounding pain of living midways in its transfer stations, seasons of our crossing, pulling ourselves over the security fence and onto the beach of the naval base in ruins. There's a sunken region where our bodies change volume, visible through what's left of the choral, auricular song, canticle of particles, the particle board of the self, as it loses all particularity, become particulate. Protest at the parking lot, enormous bonfire without home, just a pyre of empires, an empirical Pyrrhic victory, vivisection song, the threshing machine comes for our land. All we have is our bodies to put in the way, on the way toward a dark ink of fluid forms of choral freedom. Oral. Date cuenta de lo que digo, es la voz sin abrigo, sin embargo apenas puertos ocupados, buques sitiados de esencia, eflorescencia de cuerpos sin ciencia cierta, la hora muerta, la risa, la inundación de azules que nunca fundaron la nación, la conciencia hundida, la palabra hurtada, pero despuntando entre nubes en cromatismos de rabia, en atisbos de luz que nos llama la sílaba, que se desparrama por las paredes de la cárcel de un lenguaje, por suerte siempre fugitivo en su desliz imposible de fijar. Nos queda nadar hacia el imán del enunciado, la mudez que flota, la desnudez que sabe lo que sabe, algo así como deliciosa, el color de la estrella, el calor de otro martes, mirándote pintar. Un mural de suspiros, una instalación de luz amurallada, el cemento que se sabe montaña, o bien arena, o bien aire, o bien lo húmedo del beso, es decir, lo cósmico de ser sujeto pronominal en calles de fluidos, piernas, fluidos y formas, encallada, hallada la voz, coincidencia, escritos de otra tinta, rumbo a una libertad oral. And this is where the poem ends, but Edwin had asked me for an improvisation to name the nation. I'll give it a minute or two and see if I can annoy you with some faux certainties about embodiment. How many more cliches can we say? How bad the discourse of celebratory embodiment look now, cabronas y cabrones, that we're shut in. There is no fetishizing contact. There is no proximity. There's only the digital synapse. I hope you're all Deleuzians. I hope you like those digital folds. Is that what you got? Eso fue lo que trajo el barco. Esa es la democracia digital. Brega con eso, está dura la cosa. But we can call it making do. I guess the digital experimental is back. That's so 2002. I guess we have to make hyperlink poetry and write genealogies of it. But now that include everybody, that's gonna get ugly. There's gonna be social media wars. Wait, there already were. Hasn't this already happened? What does celebration look like post-nation en el encierro, en el encierro de la comunidad virtual, viral, que se llama con nombre y apellido, the body in language? Onomalingua era Edwin, que tú le decías, o algo así. Algo que no se entiende en el 2020. Vente, vente, que te moja. Vente,
¿Qué?
para la playita de nuestras improvisaciones y enunciaciones. ¡Pa'l carajo las naciones! Únanse para esta democracia digital, tal cual, the way you are. It doesn't need to get better. It doesn't need to get tighter. Edwin, rock the Zoom. It's a hot mess. That's okay. The event ain't that bright, but it's the event that we got, even if nobody got in.
You had me.
There's a password now.
You had me.
Word along.
You had me.
Pásalo, papi. No te
You had me.
Déjalo pasar.
You had me at Post Nation.
De la nación, que es mi canción. Gracias.
Gracias. Thank you, Urayoán. You had me at Post Nation. We are in Post Nation ahora mismo. Qué chévere. All right, we will talk. Okay, rocking the Zoom, Ura. Fantastic. Let's see where's Michael with, oh wow, okay. That is some self-portrait. Wow, and that began somewhere, and now it's still going somewhere. And I don't think we're done yet. I think Michael's going to come back. I wonder how the fermentation is going. Okay, fantastic. Oh, wait a minute. I got to look at that again. So here, I imagine he's adding vowels and syntax to the poem. Trying to see if there's any sense of simile in the metaphor. Oh, wait, let's add a little bit of history and a bit of the canon. Mix that up so that we can boil the canon out of here and find out where our beyond lies. Okay, we need a little vinegar to kind of like tart up the language, and a little bit of spice to kind of make it a little like, not here, because we're all not here, we're there. And just watch how the poem, oh, we're not done yet. Okay, you think the poem's done, and you come back and you fix it even more. It's never finished, is it? So let's let that ferment. We got to put hands into the poem. We got to really make it ours. We got to own that thing. This is who we are, this bowl of words and syntax and history and love and heart and guts. This is us that we're showing to you Zoomers out here. To the world. Forget Zoom. We're showing it to the world in our room, in our home. We're showing it to our room, our home, whether or not our home wants to see it. On that note, I kind of went off there for a minute. All right. Thank you, Urayoán. Our last presenter is a trio. We will have three people. This is Judd's work. And again, I will be spotlighting the videos here and there. Judd Morrissey is a writer and code artist who teaches at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and co-founded the performance collective Anatomical Theaters of Mixed Reality, or ATOM-R, Atom R. With him are Abraham Avnisan, who's an interdisciplinary artist whose work is situated at the intersection of image, text, and code, and Mark Jeffery, who's a performance installation artist and curator who teaches at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and co-founded ATOM-R, Atom R. And this piece is entitled Tender's Embrace. Judd.
Thank you, Edwin. Abe and Mark, are you ready?
Yes.
Ready. Turn your video off, Judd. T E N D E R. Hold on, you guys, 1 second. My green screen is not working very well. Let's start over, is that okay?
Sure.
Just see if I can get a better color and then we'll just go with whatever happens.
Stop looking, everybody.
Do you think I should do overhead lights or just go with the auto?
Just go with it.
Go with it. Oh, now it's really not picking it up.
Choose the color.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Turn the overhead on.
All right. Damn. Sorry, Edwin, we haven't done it this late at night, so the light's always changing.
It's okay. We're watching the process.
Oops.
Abraham, I can't see you. That's all.
I'm here, don't worry.
Okay. All right.
Okay, let's try this again. Wow, this is impressively not working. Oh,
There we go.
Okay, that's our new lighting. That's unfortunate. Okay. Ready, guys?
Wait a minute. I have a cat.
Okay. Is your cat ready?
Yeah.
T, E, N, D, E, R. A meat empire has wider teeth than shoulders.
In a city of inverted architecture,
That rotates the rack to transfer power easily.
so that even the angels are complicit in confabulating history. I dilate the penumbra of our embrace.
We invoke this operation for a tender inversion of our bodies. We domesticate
The data void of our embrasure.
To make a
bottom of the
tower's top. We plumb
the
stymied
stymied ligatures
of the heights,
depths
depths
while still toppled bodies perform a last dance. T E N D E R. I have to get to the other side of the animal.
The animal.
To ender embrasures endanger me. Riding out on a horse in our intractable tract with a breath that lands. Too late now not to endanger me with your tenderness. Not to regret the breath of language, the dreaded dismembering of the body politic. I enclose myself, fortify my home, body, breath from the raging storm on the other side of the other side. To ender embrasures in the fort's collapse. Each breath dilates the window's duration. In a new life of night where I can't touch your anonymity. Doubting that this convincing arm is really not real. Each piece of the corpus tossed over our wall reconfigures the body we agreed to share into a sentence whose risks are not palpable nodes.
E M B R A S U R E. Charge. In the fort's addition, the aperture faces itself. Because the fort is inside us, and we are inside it. The fort's disappearance became a fort by the same name. Because it replicates itself without effort or end. The embrasure divides us in a weaponized whole. Because the fort knows how to mark a body. Its elbows bound in a sailor's handshake. Because violence is the tender's embrace. The tender's embrace. Thank you. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I can't hear anything for some reason.
I can't hear Edwin.
I can't hear Edwin either.
Sorry.
Yeah, I can't.
Now,
Oh, no,
okay?
You are.
Hear.
Oh.
Yeah, I couldn't hear.
I was so out here that I didn't even go here. Sorry. Thank you. That was so great. I'm gonna wrap up the show part and open the talking part soon. But before I wrap up the show part, I was saying that if we look at the beginning where Susan had split her times and her presentation, and then Brandon very literally collaging his pieces, and even Urayoán, and then you, like there's a lot of cohabitation happening within our own messages. And I'm curious about how Judd, how you start with the text without going too long into it. Just when you begin your text, are you envisioning the visual, or does the visual come from the text?
Uh, it's definitely a long process. It's
A
kind
little
of like a
louder, Judd.
feedback loop. Oh, I'm sorry. Are these things? Can you hear me? Okay?
That's better.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I should be picking up on my headset, so I shouldn't have to be close. But um, it's just a kind of cyclical feedback loop type process that evolves over time, and a lot of what we do evolves through iteration and through different spaces that we inhabit and through different spaces that we perform in. So it's really hard to say. You know, we wrote new texts for this piece, Abe and I, by just working with the word tender and using T, E, and D as a structure. We just wanted to respond to the last few months, or the last, I don't know, 6 weeks or whatever, because the last time we performed this was just before lockdown and actually just before we kind of knew it was coming. Um, but then there's this other thing where the piece itself becomes prophetic in some way. It doesn't really need to change, its reading changes. Um, but just for example, like when Abe and I are leaning like this, we used to be leaning against each other physically. And like we would be back to back while we're reading these lines. And that's something we took from architecture when we visited a fort, a ruined fort. So there's like there's a lot of, for me, there's a lot of memory of like embodiment, and in language too. Like there's a thing that is there, and then there's the history of all the times you've said it before and what was surrounding it in those other instances, and that somewhere in there is the new iteration, like everything coming
And the
forward.
visual, it's beautifully sad how you're trying to touch Abraham and he's in the other screen, and you're both, you know, it's contact in the post world. You know, it's this unknowable here, and how poetry does that also. Just you know, just the word on the page, how it's trying to find its home or find its next leap, or so forth.
Totally. And I was also thinking about the way you kept talking about hands, and the way the collage, the way the hands were appearing in the collage. And so the embrasure is this word that became fascinated with, which are the openings in the walls of forts where you would put a weapon through or you put an arm through. Um, so there's something about that structure that we're working with the arm and with the reach and with the separation and all of that. And that has changed a lot. The implications of that and the meanings of that and the poetics of that has been not totally reconfigured, but radically reconfigured since the last time we inhabited that structure, that kind of like opening between us, or what a wall was then versus what it is now. So that, you know, and what can pass through it, what can pass through this opening, and what the threat is. And a lot of the threats are still the same, and a lot of the problems are still the same, but then there's this entirely, you know, there's this total reconfiguration of what threat is. And, you know,
There's
in
also a
terms
new
of,
approach to the word wall now. The word wall has,
yeah,
you know, it's another whatever.
yeah,
Urayoán, just jumping off that, there's a hermetic quality to what you were, to the little cutouts that were then, you know, very carefully, you know, gone through and everything, and how that also connects to me to your deciphering of the virus and in the letter form itself and everything. So there's something about how you're manifesting like your sealed environment in language.
Yeah, I mean, I think
A
you can
little
sort of,
louder, Urayoán.
yeah, I'm always interested in um, traditional forms because I like to approach them as constraints. So I see them as kind of a piece with innovative writing, right? You don't tend to think of them that way. So in this sense, the the uh, the structure of the virus, it literally is claustrophobic. And so I added a further constraint, which is that until the letter A is in the first position, I don't switch rhymes. So you could have 10 pages of trying to like keep the same rhymes going and going and going. That's why I read a little bit only. So yeah, definitely it also captures the sense of the claustrophobia felt by the two characters, although I didn't go into that section of it. So it's kind of helped me cope to just place a burden on myself that can somehow echo in the creative space, right? The real right, essential struggle that, you know, people out there, you know, or that we face in the real aspects, right? Non-creative aspects of our life. And I think the you know, the other aspect is the postcards coming from Carrion, right? Because I think he had this sense that the idea of mail art isn't to like celebrate some network connectivity, but to kind of interrogate that network and maybe to like bust it apart, right? And see what's left of it, right? So you do it lovingly. You want. I mean, so he was involved in mail.
The act of mailing something out.
Well, I think the point is doing stuff conceptually and doing stuff and thinking of the process of mailing, right, in a way that decenters, right, the idea of a kind of passively network connectivity. Like in his piece, right, he would send stuff to random folks and they would have to reassemble it, right? And there was some conversation, but for the most part, it was intuitive. So that was my vision. What happens if I did these kinds of constrained rhymes, but as opposed to the kind of the earlier stanzas, which are, right, self-contained, think of these as invitations, right, for folks to rearrange them, right, in a different sequence. So also thinking about genome sequencing, what if instead of CAGT as I was doing, you do CC, whatever, AAGT, right? And it's both an homage to the sequencing of the virus, right? But also an attempt to think through, well, you know, how does our own sense of our network connectivity, right, relate to, you know, the problem and the dangers, right, and the scary parts about that kind of sequencing and that connectivity.
Yeah, a few weeks ago I played what like scientists had taken the coding of the virus and sequenced it into music, and Chris Funkhauser did that last week, and how like looking at something in a way that you normally would not look at it. So in this case, the virus, and looking at it as sound and as notes, enables us to kind of get in there and rearrange it and maybe figure out some kind of an approach to it. So it's very poetic in that way, where like, you know, you take apart language and you kind of figure out, where am I in what I'm trying to say? Where is the me in the poem or in the world? And in so doing, you're opening this other communication, this other connection, you know, so.
Yeah, point out one thing, and I'll shut up, is that the sequence ends with something like 32 A's. So it's sequences of A, C, G, and T. What are the odds that in a sequence that's not that long, right, you would get 32 A's in a row? The odds have to be like infinitesimal, right? And when I get to that, if I ever get to that, which would be 700 pages in, I don't think I'm going to get there. But if I did, I would have to rhyme 32 lines, you know, back to back to back to back. But so I noticed that, and I'm like, wow. And then I asked a couple of doctors, a couple of scientists, like, wow, that's really unusual. Right, the other coronaviruses from 20 years ago don't have that structure. So I'm like, wow, there's a kind of beauty, but maybe that beauty is why, right, the genome is so like off the hook, right, and uncontrollable, right, because it's doing those things like.
Because there have been other coronaviruses.
Yes.
We forget that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so this one, they're all pretty similar, you know, in the distribution of the C's and G's and A's and T's, but this one has those 32 or whatever it is A's at the end. And I'm like,
and that reminds me of a Christian book, like the Eunoia.
No, yeah, I guess, yeah.
You know, like where every chapter is a letter, A-E-I-O-U. Anyway, whatever. So, Susan, where are you? Oh, where are you on my screen? You're not on my screen.
Hello, a second. Am I there now?
Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah. So just briefly. So then we talked before how like the first piece you read was very present and very much about now, obviously, and then the motion of you sort of like, you know, embodying that and living with that and coming back to us with the piece that you said was written before, and I was noticing how you could tell the second piece is more expansive and more, in a way, freeing, even though it still has questions about the colors and about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt that what I do here is I try to balance my anxiety, or the present, which is a flat screen here, which is not my world, really. What is learning how to work on that. And be in my space, but I balance it by going into nature, and there's a kind of innocence about the last language, because it was, pre-COVID-19. And that innocence is sort of gone. And I feel that it is that innocence, however, I can go outside and walk in nature, which is what I do constantly. I don't see people, I just walk in nature. And that's not really what I prefer, but my embodied experiences with all of you in your squares, and then how to address the square, are the
Right. The first piece I read about my uncle, where he was very earnestly talking to me and trying to convey his, he was sort of worried for me. So he was telling me that it's okay to feel, as if I don't know that. But he felt that he wanted to just really convey that from his background, from his very Latino, Puerto Rican background, that it's okay for a man to feel. So there was that subtext, plus that he was talking from the place, from his home that he had never left. I mean, he was not, he went outside, but he grew up in these walls. And I felt like there was something about that sense of like being in a home that you've always been in, and how present and unavoidable that is right now. we're sort of like in our home, and like, what is our home to us? What is our object? What is this thing that we live in? So I thought all of you were sort of, there was a parallel there, where there were these approaches to our livingness and our beingness, and how do we step outside our home, and then at the end, Judd, you're sort of like breaking apart what home means, not just with different screens, but with different non-touches and all that. So it was all like that. So. I'm gonna close, and then we're gonna keep talking a little bit. But anybody have any last thoughts for now?
I was just going to say one thing, Edwin.
Yes.
You said something about the word contact, and I was thinking about the term postmodern contact, as in postmodern contact improvisation. And because we're also isolated, this is post-contact modern. That's it, honey.
That's perfect. Yes. On that note, can you hear the music?
No.
Oh, okay. Well then. Okay. Thank you all for coming. We are Edwin Torres, Susan Osberg, Brandon. Oh, Brandon, we didn't talk to you, dude. I'm sorry. I have thoughts about collages. I'm going to bring that up in the talk. Brandon Downing, Urayoán Noel, and Judd Morrissey, and Abraham Avnisan and Mark Jeffery. Thank you all. Come back tomorrow. There's more stuff. Come back next week. And goodbye. Thank you for coming. And hang out if you want. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Edwin. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. We're going to have our solo clapping at the end.